But one of your earliest studies was on the economics of acting white.
Oh my gosh.
When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure they came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose.
Tell us about that. What was the...
Your former paper published a report about it, and it was a 104-page dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay?
Jesus Christ.
It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is
How do you know in the first 4 minutes? It's a 104-page paper.
But one of your earliest studies was on the economics of acting white. How do you get to that as a topic, and what did that study reveal?
Yeah. Students often ask me, how do you come up with these topics? And I say, I live. Yeah. Right? And so we had a very integrated high school in Texas, and it was integrated on paper, but it wasn't integrated in practice. All the black kids hung together, all the white kids hung together, and the only place we met with any agreement was on the football field on Friday nights. And I will admit, I was one of the people holding the racial line, telling people what was black and what was not. So, there were just certain things you couldn't do, in my opinion, if you were black, right? So you had to do certain things. So I held that line. And the way I
Give us an example.
Let me see.
Usually when you're that age, like I'm talking about middle school and high school, you're still a kid. So you're still trying to grow up and find out who you are as an individual. And an area that people tend to push themselves towards is race, especially if you go to a very diverse school and you see it's a lot of Caucasian people or a lot of black people. You're trying to find out, how do you fit in? So race is a very easy way to, I guess, put yourself in a category. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that that's probably what happened in this specific case when he was a young man.
You can't wear shorts in the winter, for example, if you're black. That doesn't work out. It's amazing. In Cambridge, it gets 50 degrees and everyone wears shorts. I'm like, what are you people doing? And you can only listen to certain music. That's changed now. But, back in the 90s, there was a certain type of music that only people could listen to. Things like that. And I was in graduate school debating with people in barbershop about this. And I said, well, I don't know. I just don't know how it works out. Like, we've got these concepts in economics called equilibrium, and I just don't understand how it works. And the people in the barbershop just started laughing at me. They thought this was the dumbest thing in the world, right? They were like, you can't study that. Ha, 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 ha. Ha, ha, I did. So I wrote a paper. I wrote 2 of them. One was a theory about it, which I'll spare you. And then I wrote an empirical paper, which tried to understand the relationship between popularity and grades in different races. And what we found was that popularity increases with grades up to about a 3.5 for black kids, and then it actually sharply declines. And that's what we were talking about.
Wow.
We were trying to understand whether or not there was an academic penalty for seemingly doing really well in school.
There definitely is an academic penalty for doing very well in school. I remember when I was in middle school, I went to the neighborhood middle school. It was nothing crazy, all public schools. And of course, it was a pretty good school. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, just a regular school. But I remember, we had a test to see if we can get into something called a science and technology program in our area. And I took this test very serious. I took this test super serious because I was in the math and engineering and stuff. I don't know what was in my mind when I was in 8th grade. But after I took this test serious, I was asking my friends. I was saying, how did y'all do? Like, what happened? Did y'all do good? Because if you get a high enough score on this test, you get to go to the science and engineering school rather than your normal public high school. And my friends were telling me, oh, I just guessed on the questions, or oh, I just did that. And I was just like, and I was asking everybody, I was like, how did you do? And none of my friends, none of them, and I'm not bashing them, but none of them really took this specific test serious. So I'm over here like saying, okay, I'm gonna do really good on this test so I can go to this engineering school. And I ended up getting into the school, but I was the only one out of my entire friend group that went to this school. And it just kind of, and this is what this reminds me of, It's like, wow, it really was not cool to excel academically until I got to high school. So that's pretty crazy, bro.
Social penalty.
Social penalty.
Okay. When you came on my radar, it was for a paper that you wrote in 2016. Here was the title of it: An Empirical Analysis of Racial Differences in Police Use of Force. Maybe there's been a more controversial paper since then. I would argue it's probably the most controversial of your career so far. Tell us about that study, and you've called the results the most surprising of your career. Why is that?
Can we change the language of controversy? I mean, do you mean interesting? People are always like, you're so controversial. I don't want to be, right? Like, I'm just showing you the data. The data are telling you.
How is a researcher controversial? Usually when you're a researcher, you just put out data that's happening in real life. I don't understand how you yourself with data can be controversial, because it's not like you're pushing a specific narrative. You're literally just putting out what you studied. Whatever.
A weird story. That's not my fault. I'd like some nice popular data. It just didn't work out that way. Look, I saw what was going on with Michael Brown and some of the early viral videos of police violence. I wanted to do something, but protesting is just not my jam. I'm not saying that people shouldn't protest. Go for it. But it seemed hot outside. I just didn't want to do it. And so I thought, I want to do something. And the only thing I know how to do is I'm one of the world's biggest data nerds. So I said, this is going to be the easiest paper I ever write. I'm going to go get some data. I'm going to go show that the police are biased. Finally, people are going to like me. And my grandmother's going to go, you showed that the police don't like black people. Really? What are you doing up there? Right? Like, this was, I had it all laid out. And then I had dinner with a colleague of mine, and I was telling him about my plan. And he says, you know, Roland, when you work on schools and other stuff like that, you really just are in the schools. And so it's weird for me, strange that you would just download police data and not understand more about the police. He says, I wonder what the police are maximizing. A very econ kind of thing to ask. I wonder what the police are maximizing. And it dawned on me in that moment, I didn't know. Nor did I think I cared. So I said, okay, fine. I didn't give him credit in the moment, but I left and said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go figure out what police.
And one thing he's saying is, notice this. He came into the study with the narrative already in his mind. Although he's a researcher, and I'm not sure on his data specifically, but everyone has their own opinions. That's just how life is. He came into the study, said, I want the results to look like this. But let's see if the results are actually going to look like that. I don't know.
Maximize. So I set up ride-alongs in Camden, Philadelphia, Houston, some places in Massachusetts to ride along with the police. Now, back to 1991. I don't like the police very much. I don't.
What had been your experience with the police?
I had been roughed up by the police. I've had guns pulled on me. Mind you, they pulled me over, and I decided it would be a good idea to get out of the car and walk away. The details are important, probably.
One job I can't even imagine being is a police officer. And here's why I would say that. When things are wrong in society, who are the first people you expect to like really risk their lives? Police officers. And it's not like police officers get paid a crazy amount of money. Mind you, I don't know exactly how much police officers make. I don't. But I don't think it's like an NBA player, or I don't think it's even like a doctor. I just think, I don't know. But if something bad happens, they're the first people you call. When anything bad happens, you're calling police. And you expect them to solve the crime. And if anything was taken from you, you expect them to find whoever did it, go and get your stuff back and bring it to you that day. You're actually mad if they don't do it that day. So when I hear people say, oh, I don't like them. And you're entitled to your own opinion. But if you have that thought, don't expect them to do things for you if you don't even show them that respect. That's all I'm saying.
But in any event, I didn't like their customer service. And so I just didn't like police. They came, they took half my family away. Granted, they were selling a lot of drugs, but again, not the greatest customer service. So I was biased against the police. I'm not, that's obvious. I went, and I don't think I've received a better education since my grandmother taught me to read. It's a hard job. And I know that sounds obvious sitting on a stage. It's a really hard job. I am a terrible police officer. After 4 hours, everyone looked like a criminal to me.
Bruh.
I don't know if I was hangry. I don't know what it was, but I'm telling you, I am serious. They were like, you could never be a cop. Because I was like, hey, let's pull over. That kid's got a basketball. I don't like it.
Oh my goodness.
I participated in these weapons training thing, not real weapons, relax, but like these weapons trainings where there's simulations, and some guy, like I'm in the building, the guy walks out, he's got a baby, I shoot the guy right in the head, and they're like, what was about the baby? I said, sorry, I didn't see the baby. You know, I was a bad police officer. But what I really did, I'm serious. I realized the job is really hard. It was the end of it.
Of course it's really hard. You have to risk your life. Like, what other job is it a requirement for you to risk your life? That is crazy. Imagine you try to clock into work and somebody's like, yeah, bro, you might not make it home. That is bruh. That is crazy. That is insane. And like they be chilling sometimes, bro. That is crazy. Me personally, bro, I don't think I can do it. I don't know, man. I don't know.
A 12-hour shift in Camden. And we get a call for a potential overdose in a row house. It's an abandoned building. We bust in. A person dies within 6 feet of me. And it shook me up a little bit. And so I looked at the guys I was with and I said, yo, how about beers on me? And they said, what do you mean beers are on you? I said, I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Do you want me to speak in Greek? I mean, I don't know. It's beers are on me. We should leave here. Let the paramedics take over. We should go. And they said, we got to go back to work.
Man.
And I said, but we just saw somebody die. And the police chief overheard me, and he was incredulous. He says, Roland, if I gave everybody a break every time someone died, no one would cover the shifts. And I was like,
That's
wow.
crazy.
It is a hard job. And so through these experiences, long story short, I collected a lot of data, and those experiences helped me understand what types of data to collect. We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal. We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And the key question, I alluded to it earlier in a bit of a joke, but the key question is not just this arbitrary, silly snapshots that some journalists, not named Barry, do a lot, which is black people are 13% of the population and they are 50% of the police shootings. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what that has to do with the question. Right? And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. Right? And so what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it.
Wow.
The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year.
Wow. So basically he basically had a study that said police aren't inherently racist. My question is, and he's a researcher at Harvard. If you don't know, in America, Harvard is the mecca of institutions. It is. It's just what it is. I'm in college right now. Harvard is the pinnacle of study. It's the picture of study. So Only reason I paused it is because why are people so adamant about pushing a narrative that black people are oppressed, or that black people are underserved, or that black people are harmed? Why are people so adamant about pushing this narrative? You have a researcher who just said he didn't find that, but my thing is, why is society? Because there's no way he's the first one to have this study. We're in 2024. It is no way he's the first person ever to study this. My thing is, people have studied this before, but they didn't publish the data, or they didn't publish their paper. Whose idea is it to just tell black people, like, yeah, you're oppressed? Yeah. Like, who is doing this?
When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose.
Tell us about that. What was the...
Well, your former paper published published a report about it, and it was a 104-page dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay?
Jesus Christ.
It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is doesn't make any sense.
How do you know in the first 4 minutes? It's a 104-page paper. Unless you're the Flash, it's no way you're reading that. It has 150 pages of sources in the appendix. So how could you possibly read the whole paper in 4 minutes? The answer is they didn't read the whole paper. And that's what I was just saying. Someone is out there trying to push a narrative that black people are oppressed. Someone is out there actively pushing and pulling and putting money into this narrative. And they just want us to believe it so bad. And I'm not going to sit here and say racism doesn't exist. I know it exists. And if you act like it doesn't exist, you're blind. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's in every single aspect of life. That every white person walking around is somehow oppressing me with their existence. I don't even know what it is now. It's something crazy. But he's a researcher. And as soon as he published his paper, people were already attacking him. They didn't even read it.
And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. People lost their minds. It was like colleagues of mine were going, well, I don't believe these results. He's using regressions. I'm like, well, what the hell else we been using? We've been using them for ever. That's what you use. And I had colleagues take me to the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part?
It's just sad, man.
Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense.
Then it would make sense. And here's my biggest problem with this. Let me get a little serious. My biggest problem with this is that his data shows that the police shootings aren't even disproportionately affecting the black community. So if you're a police officer and you read this paper, or if you just live the life, you're like, we don't even target one community. This is a fake narrative. And I'm not saying this from my opinion. I didn't even say what LFR Jojo thinks. I didn't say what I thought. I didn't even give my personal opinion on this. I'm going straight off of the data. If you're a police officer and you say, as a cop, this is not true, and this paper shows it, but you have a society saying, it doesn't matter what you say as a cop. I don't care about your day-to-day life. I don't care about this researcher from Harvard. I don't care about none of that. I think this is the truth. I think this is happening. So reality doesn't matter. You're racist. That's my problem. You have police officers who know this is not happening. You have researchers who know this is not happening. You even have some citizens who know this is not happening. But yet somebody is saying, I don't care about none of that. I'm going to tell these people this. I'm going to push my narrative, and I'm going to get money from it. And that's wrong. That is wrong. And mind you, I didn't even say what I thought. I didn't even give my personal opinion on the topic. I'm just getting facts. It's wrong.
And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens. So it was, you know, I lived under police protection for about
Police
30 or
protection?
40 days. I had a
Bruh.
7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for it because, you know, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers. You don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was really, truly
Bruh.
crazy.
This is sad.
And, yeah, it was a really phenomenal experience.
There are a lot of people, many people, and this has been a realization for me over the past few years of my own life, who faced with that exact decision point would make the opposite choice. I think the majority of people actually would make the opposite choice. They would think, I'm going to preserve my career, my professional status, my prestige. You were a golden boy at that point. I'm going to preserve my popularity, my ability to get along with my colleagues, someone nice to sit next to me in the cafeteria. Like, every incentive, to use an economics term, would be pushing you to make that choice. What is it inside of you? What can everyone here learn about what allowed you to make the opposite choice? To make the choice that would force you to suffer all of the consequences you would come to suffer, some a direct result and some adjacent to it.
I don't covet what they covet. And I tell my undergraduates every year in the final lecture of my undergraduate classes, each one of them, the key to Harvard is get a great education without letting this place change you.
The key to Harvard is getting a great education without letting this place change you. Unfortunately, no matter where you go to school, is going to change you. If you're at any place for 4 to 5 to 6 straight years, it's going to change you. Unfortunately, and people act like college isn't a place where you can learn. That's not the case. When you're in college, you learn a lot of information. The problem is you have a lot of people in schools who may not push you into the direction that they think is best for you. For example, he's a very intelligent researcher, and obviously he had very intelligent researcher friends. They knew what he posted was right, but they convinced themselves that it was wrong to push their own selfish narrative. You have very smart researchers who are actively ignoring the truth to push a narrative, and that's the problem when he says, that's the problem. That's why you can't let certain places change you. You can get the knowledge, but if you're letting the knowledge hinder you from having your own moral code, then it's wrong. But if you have any more suggestions for me, if you want to see me finish this video, comment down below. I was Jojo, and I'll see you next video.